This is a 20 Necrotic Wake. I'm playing Resto Shaman. I'm carrying with the Mikanikos Soulbind, using Chains of Devastation Legendary instead of Deep Tremor, because I'm trying it out. And the affixes are Tyrannical, Quaking, Inspiring, and Encrypted. So with that first pull, I set up with a healing rain, which I don't usually do, but I was basically just buying some time to let the tank gather all the mobs in before I drop Vesper Totem, and that's because the cooldown reduction on Vesper Totem is based on how many targets it hits initially when you place it. So I want to hit as many targets as I can, so I wait till they're gathered, but I probably should have been using Chain Lightning instead of Healing Rain, just to squeeze out a little bit more DPS. I also take a while to realize that it's Inspiring Week and just kind of throw out Capacitor Totem early. I think I get lucky quite a lot. It's not good timing, as in it's not strategic timing. It's good timing, as in it's lucky timing. So here I'm targeting the Harvester, and that's so that I'm ready to try and get a Drain Fluids interrupt. Drain Fluids will otherwise stun someone. It's channeled stun. And then I'm just mostly using my chains rotation, so that's Chain Lightning into Chain Heal and vice versa, because my Chains of Devastation Legendary makes those instant cast when I alternate them. It synergizes really nicely with my Forset, because my Forset causes some of my totems to place, will cast a Chain Heal, and that counts for the legendary. So I can use Chain Lightning, Cloudburst Totem, Chain Lightning, for instance. And the Chain Heal in between means that both Chain Lightnings will be instant cast. When things quiet down, I swap a bit and I start doing some single target damage. So I'm using more Lava Burst and Lightning Bolt instead of anything AoE. We start heading over to the Goliath here so that Korean Steward can activate him and we can pick up our orbs. So we grab that and then go and stand directly underneath the boss. Try and get maximum damage out of that orb. Pop Bloodlust. I'm using chains to help kill the and then again to help kill the worms. I should have dropped Vesper Totem there as well, but I didn't. Just trying to stand close enough to the boss to hit him, but being ready to bait the Wretch against the wall if it's cast on me. So when it's just Blightbone up, I swap to using single target spells, so Lava Burst and Lightning Bolt. And then as soon as the worms come out, it's back to the chains. This time I throw down Vesper Totem and it's Chain Lightning, Chain Heal, Chain Lightning. Unfortunately, I get phased out here by the green stuff. The Warlock places a gate so that we can teleport across, but it's just in the green. And neither of us can actually use it, so we have a wee tour. We take the scenic route around the green shit on our way over. Reconvene. Just throw out a Riptide on the Paladin because he got quite low, and then into chains. And I drop Capacitor Totem there as well. Moving out of the gas. Using single target damage. Keeping our Riptides. I get targeted by a Wretch, so I pop Astral Shift and bait that against a wall. And then back into my AoE damage rotation for a little bit of pad right at the end. So I'm going to target a harvester here so it's easier to get interrupts. So again, I'm looking for that Drain Fluids cast, which is the channeled stun. So I can make sure I get that. I also throw out a cap totem there, and again, it's just lucky that there's no inspiring because I didn't check for it. So this Chains of Devastation rotation, like throwing out all these chain heals, it's really mana intensive. But because we're getting air again, it really doesn't matter. I can use as much mana as I like. We head upstairs and I pop out my steward to activate the Goliath. So we can collect our orbs. And the tank's going to pull that left pack into the right one. If I was going to be helpful, I'd be like looking to get it interrupt on the sorcerer to help pull it in, but the tank's all over it anyway. And then stacking up so the orb does damage. And then getting big pad damage with Chain Lightning. In my case, alternating it with Chain Heal to get them to be instant cast, which is actually really nice on Quaking. I really appreciated that on Quaking. Just be careful with the Marauder. I should have stacked up here. I forgot that I had the orb running still. So I'm wasting that carrying weapon. But when you do run in, just make sure you don't get cleaved by the Marauder. That will do quite a bit of damage. And look to interrupt Rasping Scream so your group doesn't get feared. If you pop the Marauder shields, then they basically kill themselves. So that's our priority for our damage there. And we're into this pack. I dropped Vesper using my chains. I didn't realize that I was standing on top of someone else there. And we quake each other, which is unfortunate, but totally fine. So Nazuda has an ability called Dark Shroud, and it makes him immune to physical damage. So he's making sure that when it comes up, that you purge it off as quickly as you can. Which I do. These two get obliterated. We pop both their shields really quickly and they both go down really quickly. But usually you just be watching out for the Rasping Scream interrupts again and being ready to try and save any melee that get cleaved. But there they go, pop pop. I'm going to pull the pack on the left so we can get to that Goliath. Usually the mages, you'd be looking to interrupt their Frostbolt volley, which is going off now. But because the Necromancer's inspiring, we actually can't get it, so just heal through it. And then I go over and I activate the Goliath. So we're not waiting for it. I actually worry that I might have done it a little bit too early, and I warn my group that it's coming out, but the timing works out really well. So we grab our orbs and get ready for a very large pull. Basically everything except for that monstrosity. So I look to get a kick on the sorcerer to help bring it in. And then we're going to stack up. Again, being careful with that Marauder. I drop Vesper, Cloudburst, which gives me the free chain heal, and then that's into the chains. Just chain lightning, chain heal, chain lightning, chain heal. And because it's all instant cast, I'm free to move around as much as I like. But I should have moved in a bit closer here because I still have the orb on. Could be doing a bit more damage. And we also grabbed Woe there so that we can Ember skip. But first, I'm just going to wait for that mob to get CC'd and then carefully pick up the spear. And then carry on up to the next boss. Just gonna grab up here, which is one we usually grab. And then we're actually just going to kill this boss without basically anything at all. We don't use any carrying weapons, and we don't use lust. Just kill him the slow way. And I don't know if that's necessarily the play, but it's because we have a particular hate for the third boss, and we blast him with pretty much everything we can. I dropped Vesper Totem once the ads came out, and then some chains, but I also should have been looking to get some interrupts out. On the mages in particular, and I also could have dropped Capacity Totem on them. Just making sure to position myself close to the boss as well, which makes dodging the breath much easier. Just keeping the my Earth Shield up on the tank and keeping Riptide up as well. And then DPSing as much as I can. So once a single target, my single target abilities like Lava Burst, Lightning Bolt, keeping Flame Shock up, and I'm holding Vesper Totem for when the ads come back up again. So I grabbed that Frostbolt Volley Kick that time. Warlock gets clipped by that frontal. He's okay because he's a Warlock and they are tank. But I need to keep an eye on him because he's got the dot on him. So I probably should have given him a little bit more love a little bit quicker. And I should also be interrupting the boss more often too. My wind shear's off cooldown for a lot of this. It's not really necessary, just it's like a nice to have. Some more ads come out and you'll see we're burning them down. You want to make sure there's no ads up before he casts Final Harvest. But if there are ads up, you can get a hard CC on them and they won't explode and kill you all. But as a Shaman, we don't have a hard CC for them because we can't Hex Undead. So your job's either to help burn them down, or not to break CC. If they're CC'd by something that Chain Lightning can get, just be really careful because it probably will bounce even if you think it won't reach. Probably will reach. So we're off upstairs to the biggest, slowest room in the dungeon. This is where things usually get a bit hairy, and this run is no exception. So there's an Inspiring Mob in this pack, which means we can't get that Gore Splatter that comes out. We'll start taking quite a lot of damage. So I pop Ascendance here. And I actually swap to doing some proper healing instead of just relying on chains. I get one Drain Fluids kick, but another Gore Splitter goes out. So I drop Healing Tide and then also Spirit Link. So that's all 3 cooldowns just on this pool. And then as soon as we're stable again, then I'm back to my damage, so dropping Vesper, going through my chains rotation. This Drain Fluids cast goes off, and I actually could have cap totemed about halfway through. I don't realize quickly enough. So I don't manage to get it at all. Just moving out of that Spine Crush, and then just relying on my instant casts to pull us through. It's definitely something I've noticed with Chains of Devastation, just the extra healing throughput on it is really useful sometimes. I don't think it's what most people would prioritize for Mythic Plus, and Deep Tremor does seem to do a bit more damage, which is why it's so popular. But when you need it, having that extra healing throughput is just lovely. I'm using my chains rotation here, I think just as a lazy way to pop off my Vesper Totem. Not because I necessarily need to be casting on that chain heal. And we could also be using that through Cleaver a lot more than we possibly do. He tries to line it up there. Here goes another Gore Splitter cast. And it is actually the Inspiring Mob itself that cast it, which means it is interruptible. So it was just our fault for letting that go through. So I'm kicking the Drain Fluids there. And mostly just Chain Lightning, Chain Heal, Chain Lightning. Keeping up Earth Shield, Riptide on the tank, dropping Cloudburst and alternating that with the Chain Lightnings. Paladins made it back. I move closer for these two in case I get targeted with one of their cleavers, so that it's easier to run it to the other one. You want to make sure they hit each other. And then it's quite good. I back away just a little bit, and I actually get fixated. It takes me a second to notice. I think that was very, very close because his range is way bigger than it looks. And I also try not to turn him too much so that he can get cleavered by the other assistant. And Warlock lines that up. After he goes down, I get targeted with another cleaver. And I pop Astral Shift here, but I didn't need to because my tank's soaking it for me. Making sure not to lock myself with Quaking. So here I'm trying to hit as many mobs as possible with the Vesper Totem for the cooldown reduction, so end up holding it for a second. And then into that Chains rotation. And I throw out a Capacitor Totem as well just to take some of the pressure off. Then I'm actually just hard casting Chain Lightning here because we don't need the chain heals. I'm not sure if that's the play or if it's still better, given how much mana I have to be alternating it. And one of our DPS gets hit by Gut Slice and gets the dot, so I have to give him a bit of extra attention. It's also a nasty tank debuff that means they take increasing damage the longer Ghoul Grind is up. So, a few healing surges there. So this feels quite nice for chains because a bit of AoE damage, well, you know, incoming and outgoing. Group's taking some AoE damage, so it's nice for the chain heal, and then there's 4 mobs to hit, so it's nice for Chain Lightning. Throwing out some Riptides there as well. Get the odd healing surge. A very brief drink. Not necessarily because I need it, just because there was a few seconds there where I could, so I did. And then we're killing and I'm getting close to the boss in case I get the hook, which I do. So then I'm positioning in front of him, and then as soon as that arrow disappears from above my head, I move away. And then because we really hate this boss, we drop every single spear on him as well as Lust, which is probably overkill. But this is where if we wipe and we don't have curing weapons or lust, we can get stuck on this boss, especially on Tyrannical, because he does keep summoning ads and you can get really, really behind, end up taking increasing damage, and then end up not being able to complete the key. So, massive overkill on him. We actually finished that with about 20 seconds of Bloodlust left up. So we have a little bit right at the start here, and then we have absolutely nothing for this boss. But that's fine because he's not particularly difficult. We still have some maces for his shield that ages. It's nice to use them to pop that shield because it does absorb damage, but it also starts doing increasing party damage. Now Warlock unfortunately forgot to move for Comet Storm, and I didn't get anything out on him, so he goes down, but we get a wee battle res going. I like to run in a little loop when I get Comet Storm. You don't want to be running over anybody else, or into anybody else, or doubling back on your own stuff. So this nice little loop does the trick, making sure there's no one in range before I dispel that, otherwise the debuff will jump to them. Relying on my instant casts a lot for all the movement. I'm keeping Flame Shock up on the boss, which means I get my Lava Surge procs as well, so getting those instant cast Lava Bursts as well as the dot damage. And trying to use Vesper on cooldown. Had it up for a few seconds now, I should have it out. When I do cast Chain Heal, I'm trying to put that through the melee so it's more likely to jump and I get more value out of it. If I cast it on myself or on the Warlock, then there's a good chance it's not going to jump because we're too spread out. Cast Spirit Walk is Grace here, and then of course my movement doesn't interrupt my cast, so I spell lock myself on Quaking. It's a bit unfortunate. So I have all my cooldowns up at this point, and he's down to a third of his health. So I'll just start chucking those out soon. Just because. So there goes Healing Tide. You'll see his shield's up, so we're taking some party damage. Tank dropped low there for a second, so I threw out a Spirit Link, but he was already up and he was fine. Just a lot of value from that Spirit Link. I got a bit of the shield damage with it. But at this point it doesn't really matter. It's wasted if I don't use it, so I may as well use it and see if I get any benefit from it. I still have a sentence. I don't think I actually use a sentence before he goes down. There we go, an easy 2 chest on a 20. I did 5.7k DPS overall. I might have been able to do closer to 6k if I'd been running Deep Tremor. But then we also might have wiped in the room with the big pools if I didn't have those instant cast chain heals, especially with the Quaking. And with the, I think we let 3 of those big dots go out. What are they called? Core splitter.